I was frail since childhood, so my parents bought a villa specifically for me to rest and recuperate. My brother's fiancée, thinking I was his secret mistress, barged in, breaking my limbs and disfiguring my face. When she learned of the misunderstanding, she nonchalantly touched her stomach. I'm carrying your family's child. An heir or a burden, choose one. Little did she know, I was my parents' precious daughter, conceived through IVF. My brother was merely an adopted son. I was my parents' child, conceived through IVF, and I've been frail since childhood. My parents specially bought a villa for me to rest and recuperate. Last time my brother visited, he mentioned he had a girlfriend who had already moved in. I was texting my mother, asking when I would get to meet my future sister-in-law, when suddenly the villa door was violently kicked open, and loud voices approached. Get out of my way. Liam's house is my house. You'll regret it if you dare stop me. Chloe, if Mr. Liam hasn't told her, isn't it inappropriate for us to come here unannounced? You know nothing. He dotes on me so much he wouldn't even think of scolding me. I frowned and went downstairs. Because of my IVF conception, I've always been unwell, frequently suffering from headaches and fever. Therefore, my parents always treated me like a delicate princess, rarely letting me out. Once, a nanny secretly took me out, resulting in a 3-day high fever that nearly cost me my life. My parents were furious and in a fit of rage, drove the entire nanny's family out of the capital, even slapping her a few times before they left. Since then, I've been placed in this villa for recuperation, rarely seeing anyone besides family and doctors. Given how much my parents dote on me, if those people outside were to cause trouble, they would definitely suffer serious consequences. When I reached the living room, I found that the group of women had already barged in. The one leading them arrogantly dismissed all the servants, putting on a very conceited display. Before I could even speak, she scanned me up and down with a dark face, pointing at me while berating me. So this is why he's been running over here every other day. He's keeping a vixen. I was stunned, a little confused. Her group of friends behind her all looked at me with disdain. Such a white lotus look. You must have seduced many men. That's right, and living in such a luxurious villa. A cheap whore like you deserves it. Her friends continued with their scorn. What vixen? What whore? I was still trying to make sense of the situation. Who are you? Why are you in my house? Your house? Don't pretend to be the mistress. Even if he treats you well, you're still a mistress. I, Chloe, am the mistress here. Chloe crossed her arms and sneered, leading her group of friends to surround me aggressively. I'm not a mistress, you've made a mistake. Please leave or else you will get into trouble. My parents are fiercely protective and overbearing, treating me like a treasure. They've never even spoken a harsh word to me. I knew my parents would definitely be furious and these people would suffer. Despite their insults, I was still trying to explain, since it seemed to be a misunderstanding, hoping to prevent them from getting hurt. But the woman leading the charge didn't listen, instead rushing forward and slapping me hard across the face. The sound smack was sharp and loud, and I fell to the ground, my mind blank. What do you think you are? Even if I beat you to death here, what can you do to me? A vixen dares to try to kick me out. How shameless can you be? My head was ringing and my cheek throbbed with pain. Having been slapped for the first time in my life, I was genuinely angry. Get out of here or I'll call the police. I thought they would calm down upon hearing this, but the woman only became more enraged. With a grim look, she grabbed my hair, her eyes filled with malice. Call the police? I'm beating a mistress. See if the police will do anything to me. After speaking, she raised her hand again and slapped me, tearing the corner of my mouth. She even turned to signal her friends. Give her some color to see, so she knows that my Chloe's man isn't someone like her that she can fantasize about. After speaking, her friends immediately rushed forward, punching and kicking me. They were using me like a sandbag, ruthlessly venting their anger. Who do you think you are to threaten Chloe? She is Liam's girlfriend, about to marry into the family. How dare you try to steal him from her? Exactly, rushing to get us out of here means you are guilty, right? Someone who ruins other families should be struck by lightning. I say Chloe should give you a proper lesson, so you know your place and don't think you can climb into the Liam family. That's right, we can't let her off easy today. My body was racked with pain, and my mouth was filled with the taste of blood. Now I understood, this Chloe must be the girlfriend my brother mentioned, my future sister-in-law. But now, listening to her friends, the future sister-in-law became increasingly vicious, even lifting a vase to smash it on my head. If that were to land, I would be either dead or severely injured. Scared, I curled up and shouted, "Stop! I'm Liam's sister." Hearing this, everyone stopped. Chloe was suspicious. "You're Liam's sister?" I was trembling on the ground with pain, and at the end of my patience shouted, "Yes, I'm his sister. You all attacked me for no reason. Aren't you afraid of what my brother will do to you once he finds out?" I thought they would stop upon learning my identity. But Chloe stared at me for a long while, then started laughing hysterically, as if she'd heard the biggest joke of the century. "How dare you tell such an obvious lie? You're really not afraid of death. Everyone knows that Liam is an only child. I've been with him for 2 years and now I'm living with his family. Do you think I wouldn't know if he has a sister? Besides, if you were really the daughter of the Liam family, why are you hiding here alone? Why weren't you at the Liam family banquet? Don't tell me you are afraid." Her friends started laughing along with her, adding fuel to the fire. "That's right. Nobody knows better than Chloe whether the Liam family has a daughter. You're lying. I've seen plenty of cheap trash like her. She won't behave unless we teach her a lesson." Chloe spat on the ground and approached me menacingly. I backed away, tears welling in my eyes. I was indeed Liam's sister, even the precious child my parents worked hard to conceive through IVF. But because of my poor health, I had always been resting in the villa, so the outside world did not know of my existence. But that shouldn't be a reason for me to be beaten. Was there anything I could use to prove my identity? I was so anxious that my back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. Suddenly, I remembered something and took out my phone, quickly showing it to Chloe. "I'm not lying. I really am his sister. Look at my photo album. I've been growing up with my brother since I was little. This was our 12th birthday when we went on a trip, when he gifted me a yacht on my 18th birthday. Afraid of being beaten again, I showed her pictures from my phone. Fearing that she still wouldn't believe me, I showed her our chat history. The last message was from the day before yesterday when my brother came to visit. 'My dear Phoebe, I brought you a rare pink diamond necklace from South Africa. It's particularly beautiful. I'll bring it to you later. Of course I need a reward from you. A small hug is enough.' Okay, then hurry up, or else I'll go to sleep." It was clear from the messages that we were very close. Chloe scanned the chat history, her eyes narrowed. Thinking she might have finally believed me, I cried and said, "See, I'm not lying, I am his sister. We've known each other for more than 10 years. You barged in here and beat me without knowing the truth. I'm going to tell my brother." Before I could finish, Chloe furiously smashed the phone on the ground. Then she rushed towards me again, hitting and kicking me. "What brother and sister? More like lovers. You've been seducing men since you were little. How shameless. I thought Liam kept telling me that he loves me, but he has been secretly visiting here all the time. You two are childhood sweethearts, right? Bitch, bitch, bitch." The more she spoke, the angrier she became. When she noticed the sparkling pink diamond necklace on my neck, Chloe completely lost it. With red eyes, she tore the necklace off my neck, leaving a bloody mark on my porcelain skin. My neck burned like it had been cut by a knife. I couldn't help but roll on the ground, moaning. Chloe grabbed my hair and bashed my head on the ground. I felt as if a chunk of hair had been ripped out. The excruciating pain was immediately followed by the muffled sound of my head hitting the floor. Chloe wasn't satisfied and lifted me up, slapping me a dozen times. Then she turned to her friends and viciously ordered, "What are you waiting for? Isn't she saying that she is weak and can't go out? Then she doesn't need legs. What are you waiting for?" I was stunned with an ominous premonition. I instinctively tried to run. But immediately, several women rushed forward and pinned my limbs down. Already weak with so many people on me, I was already exhausted. 2 other women quickly brought a mop from the tool room and viciously swung it at me. Crack! I thought my left leg was broken alive. Ah! The pain of the bone breaking was so severe that I could not feel my left leg anymore. I could only scream and cry, struggling on the ground. Before I could even breathe, another strike came. this time to my right leg. I wanted to escape, but their hands blocked my way like steel. I tried to dodge, but Chloe was standing at the exit, laughing like a demon from hell. Everything in front of my eyes was blood red, and my throat was filled with the taste of blood. I understood completely. They thought I was Liam's secret mistress, so my future sister-in-law had decided to teach me a lesson. She didn't believe anything I said. Therefore, I was locked to the ground, watching with rage, the baton striking me ruthlessly. Soon a faint snap sound came. My left leg was completely broken, twisted out of shape. At this point, my mind was almost shattered and I even vomited a mouthful of blood. The hall was full of the terrifying sound of the batons hitting flesh and the girls' miserable screams. But obviously no one would sympathize with me. They were like righteous warriors waving the flag of mistress, justifiably inflicting torture on me. Chloe did not say anything, and none of them dared to stop. After breaking my legs, they immediately broke my arms. When everything was done, I lay on the ground with twisted limbs, my face a mess of blood, tears, and sweat, my limbs twitching uncontrollably. Through my blurry vision, I saw Chloe standing high and mighty, her gaze at me filled with an eerie sense of comfort and satisfaction. I felt chills, and I knew that she was not simply venting her anger. Chloe really wanted to kill me, and she wanted to torture me. What triggered her murderous intent was simply the suspicion that Liam and I were having an affair. This was ridiculous. I couldn't help but laugh, spitting out blood, and mocked Chloe. Just because you suspect that I'm having an affair with Liam, you want to beat me to death? Looks like your position as a girlfriend is not very stable. Or maybe you're the one desperate to marry into a wealthy family. So anyone who threatens your position makes you go crazy. How dare you say that? Chloe immediately rushed over, even kicking me in the head. Shameless bitch, you dare to blame me at this point? Someone bring me a knife, I'm going to cut off her lips. Let's see how she's going to talk then. I couldn't hear what she was saying clearly because my ears were ringing and my nose was bleeding. But soon her friends handed her the knife. Chloe looked at me with a grin, her expression vicious and smug. Speak up, I want to see what else you have to say. The next moment she raised her hand viciously. With a quick slice she cut off my thin lips. Ah! My voice was full of anguish. I had never even heard of such an atrocious method, but Chloe actually did it. Not satisfied, she slashed my face a few times. Only when my face was a red and white mess, and my mouth had become a bloody hole, did she stand up with satisfaction. I didn't want to treat you so badly. But you just had to lie, you just had to be nasty, and you got what you deserve. Tell me, don't you think you deserve it? I was in so much pain that I had almost lost my senses. Everything that had happened today was too shocking, and I was trembling just hearing her voice. It's my fault, I was wrong. Please don't hit me anymore, I'm going to die. Seeing me beg for mercy, Chloe and her friends laughed. We thought she had some backbone, but she's scared like this after being beaten a few times. Look at her cowardly face. That's how bitches are, they won't behave unless you beat them. Let's see if she dares to lie again. Chloe is destined to be a wealthy wife. Look at how she dealt with this bitch. I bet she's wishing she could call Chloe ma. She won't be able to compete with Chloe now. I bet Liam wouldn't even be able to look at her with her current state. Childhood sweethearts, my foot. When Liam's name was mentioned, Chloe's eyes brightened, and she actually made a video call. She turned the camera around specifically to show my bloody, mutilated face. My parents have protected me so well since I was a child, that doctors were always on standby even if I had a small cut on my hand. My parents had even hired countless renowned doctors and poured their hearts and souls into taking care of me. But now I had been inexplicably beaten up, and was being insulted and abused, living a life worse than death. My parents and my brother had always said that they would protect me all my life and wouldn't let me get hurt, not even a single hair. Where were they? Why weren't they coming to save me? My heart ached and 2 lines of blood tears fell from my eyes. But Chloe thought it was even more hilarious. The video had been connected, and I could vaguely hear hurried footsteps on the other end. She smiled smugly on the phone. Her bright voice was completely different from the vicious, bloodthirsty look she had when facing me just now. Liam, you're something else, keeping a mistress behind my back, and teaching this nasty woman to lie about being your sister. I've already taught her a harsh lesson. Look at how she is right now, doesn't she look like a stray dog, isn't it funny? Before she finished, Liam walked into the villa with a rushed stride and roared. What are you doing here? As soon as he spoke, everyone turned to look at him. Liam was dressed in a custom-made velvet suit, noble and proud. It was clear that he had rushed over, he was even slightly cold. I struggled on the ground, but my injuries were too severe, and all I could make was a miserable whimpering. Liam's eyes immediately locked onto me. The color drained from his face. The servants that were kicked out must have called him for help. But he didn't expect me to be in the state I was in now. All four limbs twisted, my face disfigured, my lips cut off. From afar I looked like a bloody mess, it was shocking. Seeing him stunned, Chloe immediately walked over to his side, acting all sweet. You missed me so much, we were only apart for a few hours, and you're already chasing me here. Liam's voice was trembling, though it wasn't immediately noticeable. Who allowed you to come here without my permission? Do you know who lives here? Chloe pouted and tried to act cute, her expression that of an innocent child who had no idea that she had committed a terrible crime. Why are you so loud? We're going to get married. I just wanted to see who was living in this villa. And I bumped into a shameless mistress. She even dared to pretend to be the daughter of the Liam family, and said that she was going to have your parents teach me a lesson. She threatened me, so I couldn't help but teach her a lesson. Besides, she even said she is your sister. What if she spread rumors later on? I was just trying to do you a favor. Seeing that Liam's expression was not right, Chloe's friends quickly chimed in. That's right, Chloe is doing this for you, she cares too much. This woman was talking nonsense, we all heard her. No wonder Chloe is so angry. She just loves you too much, and she wanted to take care of everything for you. Please don't be mad. My brother's expression changed continuously before he roared. She is my sister, the daughter of the Liam family. You dared to injure her like this. If my parents see this, none of you will leave here alive. Hearing this, I broke down and started crying. But because my lips were cut, all I could do was cry with blood tears. I thought I would die at Chloe's hand after being tortured all night. But I'm glad my brother arrived on time. I knew that they would never give up on me. That's impossible. She was a mistress, wasn't she? Chloe shrieked, staring at me in disbelief. Her friends were also pale, frightened like they had seen a ghost. My brother had already rushed to my side, looking at my wounds and blood. He didn't know what to do. In the end, he could only turn and roared at the stunned women. What are you waiting for? Call 911. Knowing that I was finally saved, I finally fainted. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Because my injuries were too severe, and my lips needed to be stitched back together, the hospital had performed several emergency surgeries on me. Now my whole body was covered in bandages, my mouth was numb, and I couldn't move at all. Chloe stood pale by the bedside. When she saw me wake up, she bit her lip and apologized, which was very different from the vicious look she had that night. I'm sorry, Phoebe, I was too impulsive, I apologize. After speaking, she immediately looked up and added, but I really didn't know you were Liam's sister, and you didn't say anything at first. It's not like it's all my fault, right? Liam has already scolded me. I really know that I was wrong. Today is our first time meeting. I'm your sister-in-law. We should be getting along, so let's forget about what happened that night. Okay? While she was saying sorry, I could tell by her aggrieved face that she was just saying it to smooth things over. She didn't think she did anything wrong. She probably even blamed me for causing a fight between her and Liam. I stared straight at her and couldn't understand her. She almost beat me to death. Even if I barely survived, I don't know how long it will take for my wounds to heal. And my face and lips, this was no different from disfigurement. After harming me like this, she thinks a light apology is enough to make up for it? How dare she be so shameless? As if sensing my hostile gaze, my brother quickly sat down beside me and patted the blanket soothingly. I know you were wronged, Phoebe, but Chloe has sincerely apologized to you. We can't keep holding on to this, right? Chloe has been with me for 2 years. I know her character. Your injury was a complete misunderstanding. Your sister-in-law didn't do it on purpose. We are all family, so we need to focus on peace. You are badly hurt. Getting angry won't help you recover. Listen to your brother, let's not think about this for now. Your health is the priority." His words were full of sincerity, and his eyes were filled with concern for me. But I still felt a chill in my heart, my chest feeling as if it had been filled with ice, leaving me both cold and in pain. This was my brother, the one I had grown up with. When I had a high fever as a child, he stayed by my bedside all night, refusing to leave. He had promised to protect me for life, to safeguard me with his own life, and to make me the happiest princess. But how long had it been? He had only known Chloe for 2 years, and he had already thrown me to the back of his mind. That woman was a murderer who had nearly killed me, and Liam was actually standing on her side. His heart had already gone astray. Now his mind and heart was filled with Chloe, and there was no space for his sister. "I won't let her go. I'll report it to the police, report it to the police." I trembled with anger, uttering each word to Liam. But because my lips hadn't healed properly, my speech was unclear, often letting out breathy sounds. "Be obedient, focus on getting better first." Liam frowned, his face showing disapproval. But I had to avenge myself. What did his disapproval matter? "Report it to the police. I want her to go to jail, report it to the police." I stubbornly repeated, my face full of hatred. But Chloe couldn't help but laugh. She approached the bedside, laughing so hard that she bent over, and then pointing at my face, mocked me. "You can't even speak properly. What police are you going to call? You'll just be a laughingstock. And besides, what evidence do you have that proves we were the ones who beat you? To be honest with you, those servants have all been fired, and Liam has cleaned up the crime scene. You say it was us, where's your proof? I advise you to be a good girl. I'm about to marry Liam and become the mistress of the Liam family. If you behave yourself, I might treat you better, otherwise you'll suffer." She dared to threaten me before even marrying into the family. In disbelief, I turned my head and saw Liam guiltily look away. He was determined to help Chloe bully me. Clenching my hands tightly, I was just about to question Liam when his phone rang. It was my parents. "We're still abroad, and it'll probably take another 2 days before we can return. Have you gone to see Phoebe these past few days? She's prone to allergies during seasonal changes, and it can lead to high fevers. Keep an eye on her." Hearing their familiar voices, I was eager to grab the phone and speak to them. But Liam glanced at me and immediately got up and walked to the door. Even through the door I could hear his sanctimonious voice. "Don't worry, Phoebe is doing fine. I'm taking care of her now. She's perfectly healthy and full of energy. She's taking a nap right now, it's not convenient to wake her up. I'll call you back later." He was clearly lying. I couldn't believe that Liam could do this. No wonder Chloe was so fearless. For the sake of his girlfriend, he dared to lie to my parents, and even ignored the fact that I was nearly beaten to death. When Liam came back in, my gaze towards him was filled with hatred. At that moment, the attending physician walked in. Thinking that Liam and Chloe were my family members, he showed us the examination results. Her injuries are very severe. She has multiple rib fractures, all 4 limbs have been broken. There are serious lacerations on her face, and even her lips have been maliciously cut off. Had she arrived even half a day later, the child might not have survived. He added, "Based on the nature of the injuries, if someone maliciously attacked the patient, it would be a criminal offense. I suggest that you report it to the police. There are security cameras everywhere. It shouldn't be too hard to find the culprit." Hearing this, Chloe's face paled instantly, and she quickly hid behind Liam. I frantically called to the doctor. "She's the culprit. She tried to kill me. Report her to the police. Doctor, help me." Eager to speak the truth, my words were jumbled. But the doctor still understood, and he turned to look at Chloe, who had lowered her head. His expression gradually became suspicious. Liam glared at me and immediately turned to block the doctor's view. He chuckled and explained, "You must be joking. I've already said that there wasn't any culprit." Seeing that the doctor was still skeptical, he sighed through clenched teeth. "To be honest, my sister has a mental illness caused by a high fever she had when she was young. She hasn't recovered from it even now. This time she was alone at home and accidentally injured herself with a knife in the tool room. It has nothing to do with anyone else. She's just talking nonsense. She's my only sister. If someone had maliciously harmed her, how could I not pursue justice? He spoke so convincingly that the doctor didn't suspect him further. After he left, Liam stepped forward with a dark face looking down at me. Phoebe, you're grown up now. You should know that some things can't be said carelessly. Chloe is your sister-in-law, she's family. What you should be doing is making this family harmonious, not harming others for your own selfish reasons. You've also seen that, in your current state, no one would believe a word you say. Forget about reporting it to the police, you can't even walk out of this room. I'll let you off this time, but if I find out that you're talking nonsense again, don't blame me for being rude. After he finished speaking, he pulled Chloe and turned to leave. I lay in bed, watching their retreating figures. I felt an unprecedented sense of sorrow and hatred overwhelming my heart, and my chest felt as if it had been blocked, making it difficult to breathe. I knew from that day forward I no longer had a brother. Liam refused to give me my phone, determined to keep me locked up in the hospital. He didn't want me to call the police and he didn't want me to contact my parents. But I was determined to seek justice for myself. Whether it was Chloe or him, I wouldn't let either of them go. Using the excuse of wanting to draw to pass the time, I painstakingly asked a nurse to lend me some paper and a pen. When the doctor came for my checkup, I took the chance to slip a note with my parents' phone number into his hand. Liam had hired a caregiver to supervise me 24/7, so this was the only way I could seek help. The doctor's pupils constricted momentarily when he saw the pleading look in my eyes. Then he naturally clenched the note in his hand, gave some routine instructions and turned to leave. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just this small action had made my back break out in a layer of cold sweat. Since being admitted to the hospital, my injuries were still severe. Especially my face, which constantly burned with pain, making it impossible to sleep. The terrifying face in the mirror would give me nightmares if I looked at it. Every time I looked at myself, I hated Chloe and Liam even more. In my heart, they were both my enemies. They had to pay a terrible price to appease my anger. The next morning, I had just fallen asleep after staying up all night when I heard my mother's incredulous voice by my bedside. Phoebe, is that really you? What happened? I opened my eyes and saw my parents looking weary, rushing towards me. Based on the time, they must have bought the first available flight and rushed over as quickly as possible. Having walked through a near-death experience seeing my parents, who loved me the most, I couldn't help but choke up and cry. My mother was crying even more than I was. She looked at my injuries in disbelief, almost fainting from shock. What happened to you? I only left you for 10 days and you're already injured like this. Is that a broken leg? And your face, my poor child, you're breaking your mother's heart. I had been weak and sick since I was born, and my mother had always cherished me like a precious gem. Now that her beloved daughter was beaten beyond recognition, even though some of her injuries had healed, she could imagine how badly injured I had been just by looking at the bandages and wounds. My father was even more furious. Like a lion who had been provoked, his eyes were red as he stared at my injuries for a long time. Then he carefully placed his hand on my head and asked word by word, Phoebe, tell your father who did this to you? I want to see just whose mother is so bold to dare hurt my daughter. I was crying with tears streaming down my face. Just as I was about to tell them the truth, the door to the ward was pushed open. It was Liam and Chloe. Seeing my parents, Liam's pupils contracted, and he quickly rushed in front of them, trying to block their view. Mom, Dad, why are you here? I was thinking about telling you when Phoebe felt a little better. Actually, her injuries were self-inflicted. As punishment, I've already fired all the servants. Her injuries just look serious, but they're just superficial wounds. She'll be fine in a couple of days. Don't worry too much. I heard you rushed back overnight. Why don't we go home first? You guys can rest before you come to see her. He spoke cautiously, trying to hide the bloody truth from that night. But with me being so badly injured, my parents would never believe such a ridiculous lie. They pushed Liam aside, staring into my eyes, and asked, Phoebe, we want to hear it from you. Who hurt you like this? My parents hadn't been so angry in many years. Now their eyes were red with heartache. They made it clear that once they knew who the culprit was, they would retaliate and get justice for me. Phoebe can't even talk, don't pressure her. Let's go home and discuss this later. Liam was sweating profusely, still trying to stop them. I could no longer tolerate it, roaring, "How much longer are you going to act? Your girlfriend, Chloe, is a murderer. And you're her accomplice. She broke my limbs, disfigured my face, and even cut off my lips. But what did you, my brother, do? You only protected the murderer. And you're even hiding the truth from our parents and preventing me from speaking up. Liam, are you even human?" After I finished speaking, the ward became silent. Liam's face was pale, trembling as he could not say a word. Chloe, on the other hand, stood out nonchalantly, admitting it openly. "I did it, so what?" My parents' red eyes immediately locked onto Chloe. But she smugly touched her stomach, her face full of arrogance. "It was just confirmed a week ago that I'm pregnant. I'm carrying your Liam family's grandson. Phoebe's beating was just a small misunderstanding. You're not going to throw away your grandson for a worthless girl. Let me tell you, I already know the gender. This child is a boy. Your grandson is in my belly. I don't think you dare to do anything to me." As soon as she finished, Liam's eyes flickered, but his face showed no sign of surprise. My parents stepped towards Chloe, getting closer. Until they stood in front of her, they stared at her obviously protruding belly and asked softly, "You mean you're pregnant with Liam's child, so that gives you the right to beat our daughter? Anyway, she's a worthless girl. Isn't having your heir Liam enough? And Phoebe has just broken limbs and a disfigured face. She's not dead." As soon as she said that, she was slapped to the ground, covering her face. My father, who had been trying to keep his anger in check, slapped Chloe in the face. "What do you think you are? You haven't even married into the Liam family, and yet you dare attack my daughter. Let me tell you, you and that piece of flesh in your belly are not as important as even a single hair on Phoebe's head. Someone break all of Chloe's limbs. I want her to endure all the pain my daughter has gone through." As soon as he finished speaking, a line of bodyguards entered the room, directly pinning Chloe to the ground. "How dare you touch me? I am Liam's girlfriend, the future mistress of the Liam family. If something happens to the child in my belly, none of you will have a good ending." Chloe shouted, her voice shrill. But the bodyguards were brought by my parents, and they only listened to their orders. No one paid any attention to Chloe. They were very efficient, and they even brought out wooden clubs, silently hitting Chloe's legs with all their might. "Ah!" With a sharp cry, Chloe was sweating all over her body, nearly fainting from the pain. Seeing that the bodyguards were about to continue, her eyes were filled with hatred, as she gritted her teeth, cursing my parents. "You dare lay a hand on me? You broke my legs in broad daylight. You guys are crazy. I have Liam's child in my belly. If you dare touch me again, don't blame me for taking you down with me. Then you can all kneel and beg me." Even at this point, Chloe was still stubborn, even cursing my parents for dying early. Seeing my parents' faces turning darker, they even ordered someone to cut off Chloe's tongue. Liam panicked. Both he and I knew that my parents always did what they said. I was their Achilles heel, and Chloe dared to harm me like this and still utter such nonsense. My parents were really capable of cutting off her tongue. And the worst-case scenario was that Chloe might not be able to leave that room. "Chloe, stop talking, my parents won't listen to that. Stop, can't you see she's pregnant? If you dare touch her again, I'm done with you." Liam was feebly trying to pull the bodyguards away, wanting to save the woman he loved. But it was useless. These were mostly retired mercenaries who only listened to my parents' orders. But now my parents watched coldly as Chloe broke another leg, completely ignoring Liam's cries and pleas. It seemed that they would only stop when Chloe's limbs were completely destroyed and her tongue was cut off. "Ah! Liam, save me, I'm going to die." This time it was her arm. Chloe was no longer able to curse. She rolled on the floor, moaning in pain, covered in sweat. But just like how her friends had pinned me down, the bodyguards locked her limbs without mercy, making her unable to escape. Liam was frantic, his eyes bloodshot, as he roared at my parents. "Are you really going to kill her? Phoebe is already crippled. Even if you kill Chloe, what's the use? She's carrying my child. Mom, Dad, if you don't let her go, I'll cut ties with you. You'll never see me again." Hearing this, I thought that my parents would back down. But they glanced at Liam, their gaze calm to the point of indifference. Then my father, unable to bear it any longer, kicked Liam, pointing at his face while cursing. "You've become so bold, threatening us for this murderer. Did Chloe dare lay a hand on Phoebe because of your influence? What do you think you are? Let me tell you, Phoebe is our biological daughter, the one we treasure. You're just an adopted son." Silence filled the room. Even Chloe was shocked. Liam was stunned by everything. His face was pale and he asked my parents incredulously, "I'm adopted? How is that possible? You treated me and Phoebe the same." My mother stepped forward with red eyes and slapped him, her eyes full of hatred. "You know we treated you and Phoebe the same, but how did you treat her? Did you treat her like your own sister? I pitied you when you were abandoned on the streets and brought you into the Liam family. Even after Phoebe was born, we never treated you any less. From schools to food, clothing, and housing, everything you used was the best. Even your father let you manage the company. We thought Phoebe was weak, so we wanted you to inherit the Liam family in the future and take care of your sister. But what did you do? For a woman, for an unborn child, you've even ignored your own sister's life. Are you even human? You're a heartless beast." My mother was furious and her face was red with anger. This son had broken her heart. They had put in their heart and soul for so long, but in the end, their adopted son had become the murderer's accomplice, nearly killing their own daughter. Now to them, Liam was no longer a son they had high hopes for, but the culprit who bullied their daughter. Chloe on the ground was shocked. Her only reliance was Liam's identity, but now he was just an adopted son. What about her then? Would she really be beaten to death by the Liam couple? Looking up at my parents' bloodthirsty eyes filled with hatred, Chloe was terrified. As the bodyguards approached again, she cried and begged for mercy. "It was my fault. I thought Miss Liam was Liam's mistress, so I acted impulsively and made a big mistake. I am willing to compensate Miss Liam for all her hospital expenses. I just beg you to spare my life today. Let me live. I can give up this child too. Anyway, Liam is just an adopted son. I will abort the child and won't let him threaten Miss Liam's position. I will move to a new city and never appear in your sight again. Please let me go." She cried her heart out, and even wanted to crawl towards my parents, dragging her broken legs to beg for forgiveness. "Chloe!" Liam stared at her in disbelief, shocked by how quickly his girlfriend had changed her tune. But my mother looked at Chloe coldly, without any trace of pity. Her voice was clear word by word. "When you hurt Phoebe that night, did she beg for mercy? Did she call for help? You hurt her like this. Did you ever think about letting her off?" After speaking, my mother signaled the bodyguards to continue. Sensing a subtle trembling from me, thinking I was scared, my mother turned to touch my face, comforting me. "Don't be afraid, Phoebe. This is what she deserves. Everyone has to pay the price for their mistakes. Chloe hurt you, so what Mom and Dad are doing to her now is only right." I nodded, burying my face into my mother's embrace. Actually, I wasn't afraid. Seeing my enemy now begging and crying like a stray dog, kneeling for forgiveness, I only felt delighted, only felt excited. I would never forget what she had done to me that night. Only by seeing Chloe pay a terrible price would my heart feel some measure of relief. And so, everyone watched as Chloe's limbs were broken, her face slashed, and even her tongue was cut off. After everything was done, Chloe was beyond recognition, her entire body covered in blood, looking even more miserable than I had been that night. She covered her stomach and whimpered as she rolled around in agony. It took me a while to realize that she was bleeding from her lower body, having a miscarriage. But now no one would help her. After that day, Chloe was crippled, and she laid in my hospital room for 2 days before being taken away. Her injuries were so severe that she would never recover. Coupled with a disfigured face and a severed tongue, Chloe committed suicide not long after entering prison. As for Liam, he was beaten and driven out of the house by my parents, stripped of all inheritance rights. Later, he had no choice but to beg for a living. I received his news again 3 months later. The police called and said that Liam was fighting with a group of thugs over territory and food, and was beaten to death. The once promising heir of the Liam family had turned into an unclaimed corpse. It was a sad story. But my parents were not sad about it. They casually sent Liam to the crematorium, punished the group of friends who had helped Chloe beat me that night, and then devoted themselves wholeheartedly to me. A top-notch medical team and plastic surgeons created a comprehensive treatment plan for me. My parents suspended all their work, taking turns to stay by my side day and night, helping me with my rehabilitation. Phoebe, it's been hard on you. From now on, Mom and Dad won't do anything else and will just accompany you. You're our only child conceived through IVF. If something happened to you, there's no point for Mom and Dad to keep living. So Phoebe, you have to keep pushing forward. After you recover, you'll have a new life. With their company, my condition improved day by day. Soon I was able to walk again and was no different from a normal person. After all my indicators were back to normal, a top plastic surgeon performed surgery on me. Half a year later, I took off the bandages with my parents by my side. We looked into the mirror with anticipation, then burst into tears at the same time. The face in the mirror had completely recovered, and it looked exactly like it had before. My body was completely recovered as well. We hugged each other, crying tears of joy. We all knew that the gloom that had been hanging over me had finally dissipated, and today marked the start of a new life. And